It will come through integrating Bitcoin into AI. Freezing transaction is just one symptom of this entire technology not being internet native, trying to solve problems of today or tomorrow. We're not trying kind of to anticipate what will happen in 50 or 100 years. Technically, a Lightning transaction is a Bitcoin transaction. So from a technical standpoint, the internet did it for information, Bitcoin can do it for value.
Hey guys, welcome back to another show today. I'm here with Roy, which is co-founder and CEO at Breez. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you for having me, Mauricio.
It's a pleasure. We had a fantastic chat off camera. We have a lot of stuff in common and we are almost
same age.
Exactly the same birthday. So do you mind to give us an intro and tell us a little bit about yourself?
What can I tell the people about myself? A Bitcoiner. Obviously, I've been in the space actively since 2018. I'm a Bitcoiner, by the way, like yourself, since 2013. I like to read. I like to watch sports. I started playing paddle recently.
And I would like to talk about Breez, right? Because you guys are doing some interesting stuff. So for those people that are not familiar with the company, can you give us an intro and tell us what Breez is doing?
Of course. Breez, I started Breez in 2018 with a vision to help Bitcoin transform from what we call now digital gold to a medium of exchange. We started the company with the inception of the Lightning Network. Lightning back then was only taking its first baby steps to be something real. And we kind of jumped on the Lightning wagon because we thought it was a great technology to help Bitcoin realize its true potential of being a peer-to-peer electronic cash, like a medium of exchange, a real-world currency that people can use in order to buy, make payments, transfer value, etc. So we're a Lightning company at heart. Lightning is the technology, and the goal is to make a Bitcoin a currency. We started off by developing a wallet, a very popular wallet for among the Bitcoiners and the Bitcoin community. It was the first wallet that ran a fully featured Lightning LND node inside your mobile device. And we then continue to evolve with the technology. We introduced something called an LSP, a Lightning Service Provider, to the market, a magical entity that connects you to Lightning Network, similarly to the way that you're connected to an internet through an ISP. And we kept reiterating all the technology. And now we're very much focused on providing developers with the tools they need in order to add Bitcoin into their own application. So if there's an application developer, a service provider out there that wants to add fast, cheap, scalable Bitcoin payments to their solution, they can use our SDK, our software development kit, in order to do so.
I absolutely love the technology. And like I told you off camera, not long ago, I hosted a debate, or more like a discussion. It was like a Bitcoin versus Caspa. And the Lightning came up. And from the Caspa side, they were saying, oh, Lightning is not Bitcoin, it's a different thing. The miners are not taking the fees. And what's your point here? Because of course I disagree. I think Lightning is Bitcoin. But now that I have you here, a true expert, I would like to ask you, how do you feel about it?
So let's start by some definitions. Let's define what's a layer 1 and what's a layer 2. And then I'll try to explain why I think Lightning is a layer 2 of Bitcoin, and then we'll take it from there. So we have blockchains, and we have the Bitcoin blockchain, and the Bitcoin blockchain inherently doesn't scale because of the blockchain trilemma. There's a certain period of time where a block gets mined, on average every 10 minutes, and there's a certain amount of Bitcoin transactions that can go into every block, and that inherently cap the scalability of Bitcoin transaction. I think on average today, we have like 5 to 7 transactions. We can have 5 to 7 Bitcoin transaction per second. And of course, if you want to serve millions and billions of high frequency users, you can do that with that throughput. A set of solutions that aim to make Bitcoin cheaper, scalable and faster. Because in Bitcoin, in order to execute a transaction, you need to wait at least 10 minutes for a block confirmation. And also that is just in cases where you pay enough fees to get a priority in the blockchain. And in a high-free environment, it's very hard to guarantee the confirmation time. Lightning, in that regard, is like an additional layer that is built on top of the blockchain. It's derived from the blockchain, and I explain how. And it has a very interesting concept that not every transaction needs to be published to the chain. And let's explain what it means. So it's a Lightning network. And the basic artifact of a Lightning network is what we call a payment channel. What's a payment channel? Payment channel, it's 2 out of 2 multi-sig wallet. Let's say you and I want to transact over Lightning. So what we do, we open a channel between us, and this channel is a Bitcoin transaction. We set up a multi-sig wallet between us, 2 out of 2, and we allocate Bitcoins in that specific channel. If you want to visualize that, a common analogy that I use is like and we're both old. So let's think, if you remember kind of the abacus, where the Chinese used to do math, arithmetics using this abacus, and you can think about a Lightning channel like a wire in this abacus. Both of us have some beads on each end of the channel. And the initial setup of this wire, of this payment channel, is broadcasted and confirmed in the Bitcoin blockchain. Now, once we have a payment channel, we have this wire with beads on every side, we can start moving beads from one end to another without involving the blockchain, without involving the Bitcoin mainnet. Why? Because both of us are actually we're technically executing Bitcoin transactions between us. The only thing that we don't do is that we don't broadcast these transactions to the chain. We maintain a copy of these transactions, and whenever we want, we can decide to broadcast it back to the chain. In Lightning, this is called closing of a channel. We can close the channel and settle on chain. But effectively, if we keep doing that, if we keep moving the beads from one end of the channel to another, and we're all okay with our state, there's no reason to close the channel. So this payment channel is like, if you want to use another analogy, it's like a zip file of many small transactions that are core between us. So that's one big part of kind of this Lightning technology. Another part is the network part. So we explain kind of what is the basic artifact of Lightning, this payment channel. But the real magic of Lightning is the fact that you can open another channel with Carol. That means that I can effectively move money to Carol through our payment channel. So I move money to your end of the channel. I move beads from my end of the channel to your end of the channel. You move beads to Carol. And that way I can transact with Carol without even opening a payment channel or kind of broadcasting a new transaction to the chain. And that's really the magic of Lightning, because it means that if we have enough enough channels in the network, everyone can send everyone funds without doing too much on-chain activity. And that's really helps scale Bitcoin. It also allows us to do instant settlement because we don't need to wait for confirmation. It also allows us to move value without paying large fees, because effectively, if we move a value between us, we don't have to pay any fees at all. If I use you as a Lightning node, as a router to Carol, then you may decide to take a small cut of this transaction. And of course, you need to, because if you're effectively routing payments, you need to get a cut to compensate on your involvement in this transaction. But these are relatively very cheap fees. So now after this Lightning 101, let's go back to your origin question, whether Lightning is Bitcoin. So technically, a Lightning transaction is a Bitcoin transaction. So from a technical standpoint, I don't want to go into kind of non-technical arguments, but from a technical standpoint, a Lightning transaction is a Bitcoin transaction because it's effectively a Bitcoin transaction. All the state that preserved on each side of the node is a new Bitcoin transaction that can be broadcasted to the chain. So effectively, the asset is Bitcoin. Technically, the settlement is translated to actual Bitcoin transaction. The only thing that doesn't happen is broadcasting to the chain. That can happen whenever there's a dispute between the users in the network. So from all criteria, this is Bitcoin. Like, I don't know how someone can claim that Lightning is not Bitcoin.
Thank you so much for explaining it so well. I completely agree with you. And it feels like Bitcoin is not scalable, but it can extend, right? We can call in and out
Yes.
when needed. And I also would argue that not every transaction must be necessarily on the main chain, right? Like there are things like buying a cup of coffee. Who cares? I'm actually okay if there is another layer on top, right? And also the argument was, oh, everyone is going to stop using layer one, which doesn't make any sense because not every transaction is going to leverage layer two or Lightning, right? Some are going to stay at the base layer.
Lightning is very dependent on layer one. So again, if you understand the concept of Lightning, meaning opening and closing channels, these are layer two transactions. So in a world where Bitcoin is popular as a medium of exchange, this opening and closing of channels is a very frequent operation. It's not something that is supposed to be rare. You open channels, you close channels, you interact with the chain when you do that. Exactly, like instead of sending, let's say, 100 doc files to your friend, you zip everything in a zip file, but this zip file is still a file. So I think the argument of if Lightning is successful, there will be enough economic activity on layer one as well. And we all want Bitcoin to be successful. So I think the focus should be on how do we make Bitcoin successful and not kind of theorizing whether miners will be incentivized with Lightning. We need to use the best tool for the job. And if Lightning is a better tool for the job for using Bitcoin as a medium of exchange in some use cases, let's use Lightning and the market will figure it out.
My two Satoshis are, it would be like arguing and saying, oh, sending an email is not internet, or browsing www.
Exactly.
It's different protocol, SMTP, HTTP, FTP. Yeah. Those, they all belong into the internet umbrella, but they have different services, right?
Yes. Lightning is definitely part of Bitcoin. The SegWit was put in place in order to facilitate solutions and layer two solutions like Lightning. So definitely, I see it as part of the same solution.
Yeah, and also it would be crazy not to think that things aren't going to evolve. Like the way me and you connected into the internet in the early 2000s or late 90s was very different than nowadays. Actually, nowadays people ask for the Wi-Fi, right? That's the problem, the password to Wi-Fi. But back in the days, there was a phone line, and you had to connect to a modem. It was a very different story. You had to use internet cafe when you were abroad. You know, you didn't have a phone in your pocket.
Typically, all these arguments coming from people that are trying to fud Bitcoin. Let's be honest. I never heard this argument coming from Bitcoiners. It's coming from people that develop alternative chains or coins that want to sell their blockchain because they say, okay, Bitcoin isn't scalable, and we have a better solution that is far more scalable. And I don't know what other arguments they promote. And then Bitcoiners say, well, listen, we have Lightning, we have solutions like Arc, we have solutions like Spark, we have solutions like BitVM. Bitcoin can scale with the current blockchain, But then the counter argument is, well, yes, you have a layer 2 solutions, but it's not really Bitcoin. You're not using the Bitcoin blockchain, and they're trying to add some FUD by claiming that miners won't be incentivized and so on. But it's all in order to promote their Bitcoin, basically.
I was about to say the only use case I can see by criticizing Lightning Network is because there is a coin coming in. Hey, but my coin solves the problems that we don't even. It's like arguing on what's going to happen 150 years from now when the last Bitcoin is going to be mined. It's 150 years from today. Like, why we're even.
Exactly.
It's so far, so far down the line.
Exactly. I agree with you 100%. And by the way, I think what people don't understand about the way Bitcoin is being developed is that Bitcoin is, we always try, I'm speaking in the name of the Bitcoin community, we're always trying to solve problems of today or tomorrow. We're not trying kind of to anticipate what will happen in 50 or 100 years. That's why we're not like bothered with quantum right now. We may be bothered with it in a year, in 2 years, in 5 years, but it's not, we're trying kind of to solve immediate problems and not kind of trying to foresee the future. Bitcoin, in my mind, is a real world solution, and we need to focus on solving real world issues.
We better stay focused, like you said. I agree in what happens today or maybe even tomorrow. How do you feel about volatility? Because you've seen a bunch of cycles. Are you immune to volatility now? It doesn't bother you anymore?
No, it personally doesn't bother me at all. I know that in the I think that in the long run, all this fluctuation doesn't really matter. And I have 12 years in Bitcoin to go through a few cycles that I'm kind of confident that the trajectory is the right trajectory. So no, to be honest, I'm not bothered with volatility. The only thing that bothers me in volatility is the fact that Bitcoin is the primary use case. Bitcoin is still being used as a speculative asset. That's what bothers me in volatility, because I think that once Bitcoin will be used in the real world, more used as a true medium of exchange, then volatility there will be less volatility, because the value of Bitcoin will be tied more to real world assets and real world value. So in that regards, that's the only thing kind of that bothers me when it comes to Bitcoin volatility. But I understand it is what it is. People speculate on the value proposition of Bitcoin as the best asset in the world. So of course there will be volatility. My job, and that's why I started Breez, is to make sure that Bitcoin is not just an asset. Bitcoin also is going to be used as a mean to transfer value. And I think the more people will use it as a mean to actually facilitate value transfer, then volatility will go down.
I agree. It's also part of adoption, right? Look at even gold. Back in the early days, the price was way more volatile. Then with adoption comes less volatility. By the way, in each direction. So it's going to move less in each way. So it's going to pump less, but also dump less. Me and you experience some severe correction into the winter or the bear market, which I don't think we're going to see 80% or 90% drawdown anyway. We might see corrections at some point because people are greed and fear play a vital role in our society, but I don't think we'll see a 90% correction. I don't know if you agree.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think Bitcoin is going mainstream, and all the volatility, which is positive volatility because the number went up, comes from people realizing Bitcoin is the best asset class in the world, and I think that will continue to happen. I don't think we're nearly scratched the surface where it comes kind of to people realizing that and investing in that. So I think we still have time, and we'll still see some trends, because whenever people come to a new realization about Bitcoin, then we see a pump and then a small correction, and we'll go through several of the cycles still. But again, I think what's important for me in parallel is to establish Bitcoin not just as an asset, but as a technology being a medium of exchange. Because I think one of the things that are undervalued in Bitcoin is the fact that, yes, we have the best asset, the best store of value in the world, but we also have the best medium of exchange in the world. And that is deeply undervalued. The more people will start looking and actually using, like understanding the true utility of Bitcoin, then people will value Bitcoin more, but at the same time, volatility will decrease.
I agree. And also, from a logical perspective, it makes sense. Like first, we agree that something has value. Then we think about how can we exchange this value from one to another. It would be weird if we would go to exchange something we don't care about, right?
I would say differently. I would say that the fact that you establish value means that it has a potential to be exchanged. Because what store of value means? It means that at some point in time you would want to exchange this asset and get value. So it's a process of kind of price discovery. And the more something is being exchanged, the more the value is triangled. I think what people are missing when they say, okay, we'll establish Bitcoin as a store of value, and then Bitcoin will move to kind of the medium of exchange phase. No, the fact that Bitcoin is a store of value and Bitcoin succeeds as a store of value is because it's heavily exchanged right now. Bitcoin is being traded in order of magnitudes above its market share. Why? Because it's being traded a lot, meaning being used also as a medium of exchange. People are sending and receiving Bitcoin. Yes, maybe the use case is not. I think there's also kind of misconception. People think of medium of exchange as merchant adoption, but these are not the same. Like sometimes trading is using Bitcoin as a medium of exchange. Yes, it's not yet being used at merchant, and doesn't mean that people are using Bitcoin to buy coffee, but Bitcoin is heavily used as a medium of exchange still.
I love what you said there, because when you ask yourself why it has value, well, because part of the value proposition is I can transfer it. It's
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's a permissionless, borderless, open network that everyone can participate and everyone can transact. And yes, people do that today. A lot of the use cases are just to buy Bitcoin and hold it and sell it afterwards, of course, but people use it for remittance. That's a very popular use case of Bitcoin because it's open, borderless global currency. And yes, I think merchant adoption will come sometime, maybe at the end. But I think as a technology, we still can explore a lot of use cases around these properties and what I call the utility of Bitcoin. For example, what we do in Breez, and that's why we're kind of focused on the Breez SDK. People don't understand that Bitcoin can unlock value the same way the internet unlocked information. So from a technology standpoint, it can be a complete revolution. We had a conversation before the podcast, before you started recording, and you told me about kind of the early days of the internet. People didn't understand that the internet has this potential to kind of transform human behavior when the internet was just getting started. People thought about it like you created websites for a lot of retail companies, and people, I think, like that was one of the first use cases of the internet, like having a virtual front for retail stores. But the internet completely transformed our lives, and Bitcoin can do the same. The internet did it for information. Bitcoin can do it for value. We're so locked in kind of the fiat mindset of payments, of who is allowed to accept payment, when you are allowed to send the payment. This entire payment concept is a fiat mindset. Bitcoin frees us from this fiat mindset and allows every developer out there to facilitate what I call value transfer, which is much bigger than kind of Bitcoin payments or merchant or buying coffee for Bitcoins.
I mean, I don't want to ask you a number because it doesn't make any sense, but in terms of adoption, I mean, today I've asked ChatGPT and it said to me that we are somewhat in the 3-4% adoption worldwide of people having crypto, and part of those, some have Bitcoin, not all of them. How much do you think we're going to push in the next 10 years? Because technically it should compound, right? So whatever we saw in the past 16 years, in the next 10 should be exponential.
I don't think we're close to the hockey stick, meaning I think we're still kind of, the puzzle isn't complete. We're just making progress on the right technology. We're talking a lot about Lightning, but there are other layer 2 solutions that will help Bitcoin kind of realize its true potential. And I think what needs to happen is that developers, I see Bitcoin as a technology revolution. And I think we're still not there in terms of developer, which I think will be the agents of change, understanding the potential of Bitcoin. So I think that in the next 3 to 5 years, we'll see Bitcoin embedded in mainstream applications. And when I say mainstream applications, I mean communication applications like WhatsApp, Signal, etc. I think social networks will adopt Bitcoin as a way to transfer value. And if that happens, so the adoption rate is basically the usage of these applications, right? I would like to see at least one order of magnitude on the stats that you gave. So I think we can grow by at least one order of magnitude in the next 3 to 5 years. But I think the penetration will come from a different angle to what people think when they think about crypto or Bitcoin today. It will come from actual day-to-day usage. I'll give you another example. Let's imagine we're having this conversation about the digital camera penetration when the digital camera was just launched. So yes, people started buying digital cameras and replacing their old film cameras with digital cameras, but the use cases and the way people use cameras was still the same, right? You went to a vacation, you took some pictures, you put these pictures in your photo album, etc., etc. It didn't really transform your human behavior, and roughly the same people that used to have a film camera upgraded it to a digital camera. But the real hockey stick of digital camera adoption came with the convergence of the digital camera into mobile devices. So the fact that we had mobile devices, the fact that we kind of embedded the digital camera technology in a device that anyone can carry, and the fact that we had applications, an application layer that kind of used this technology in the way that we even couldn't anticipate. Like, did you imagine when the digital camera first came out, did you imagine that before every lunch that you're gonna eat, you're gonna take a photo of your lunch? Did you imagine seeing people dancing in the streets and filming this? You couldn't even kind of anticipate the way that this technology will transform human behavior. And that was kind of the inflection point. And I think Bitcoin is getting close to this type of convergence. It will come from kind of making it easier to transfer value through mobile devices. It will come through integrating Bitcoin into AI, and kind of the convergence of Bitcoin and AI would be another way that will facilitate new use cases that we can even imagine, like the way that AI can settle with other AIs on a kind of permissionless, open, borderless network. You need Bitcoin to do that without any human involvement.
You touched on something I wanted to ask you anyway, because imagine an AI agent using a bank account or some gold, and it's not going to work. Yeah. So they won't be able to, right? And also, besides that, like you mentioned, we are entering a phase where you have abundance on digital. There is a lot of stuff, and value is basically going into the drain because nothing has value anymore. Because, like you said, you can take photos with your phone, you don't own anything, you watch everything online, you don't buy movies anymore, you rent everything. So then value becomes an issue because then where do we transfer value? Well, then here's Bitcoin, right? It's going to solve the problem.
Exactly, because we keep relying on legacy systems when it comes to transfer value. And yes, we have applications, nice apps that kind of nice marketplaces that facilitate value transfer, but they do it in their own closed garden. So if you think about, for example, Uber or OnlyFans or Spotify, what essentially these functions of these apps? They create a marketplace, but the main use case is the ability to transfer value within a closed garden. Yes, it's of course aimed to a specific vertical. It can be songs, it can be videos, it can be driving, it can be gig economy, it can be whatever they facilitate. But the essential value proposition of these closed gardens is to facilitate value transfer. So imagine that any developer in the world will be able to do that across any jurisdiction, and you don't even need a bank account to be subscribed to the traditional fiat system in order to take part of these capabilities. That's where the true utility of Bitcoin really shines, but we're not there because it's like discussing how the internet would look like in the early 80s. So we'll get there, and I think it will happen sooner than later.
Imagine trying to explain to our grandmothers or grandfather that there are people they call influencers and they sell product on Instagram.
What did they say? Yeah, exactly.
It would be so far-fetched from this. What do you mean?
Exactly. And WhatsApp and email and like the way that we communicate, that way, like today, like when someone calls me, I'm kind of baffled. Like I don't understand why people call me anymore. Why do they don't text? And that's an internet revolution, right? People used to talk to people before the internet. Now, when someone calls you, you don't understand why they call you then instead of texting you. So I think it's very hard to anticipate kind of the use cases that will be unlocked through the Bitcoin technology, but I think it's going to transformize human behavior.
Is there anything that worries you? Do you see something going south, or is there anything specifically that goes, "Ooh, this worries me particularly"?
People don't understand that I don't think we started like what we see now because of Trump. We see the US government embraces crypto. And we're kind of all happy with it because that brings more demand to Bitcoin through various tools like ETFs, etc. But I think that can change in an instant. Like I think once people start acknowledging that Bitcoin can eat their lunch, meaning all these companies that I've mentioned, like Uber, Spotify, OnlyFans, all the internet that is essentially, and banks, not to mention kind of banks and traditional fiat system and fintech operators, all these companies that want to keep your value transfer very permissioned because they take a cut out of your transactions and everything is regulated and everything is permission. I think once we'll start to challenge them with a true peer-to-peer network, then there will be a fight. And we see that happening in various parts of the world. There's a crypto ban. A government can say, no, it's illegal to hold Bitcoin or to transact in Bitcoin. That can happen. At the end of the day, everything is good for Bitcoin. And if that will happen, there will be a war of a black Bitcoin and a white Bitcoin, and the black will win in the end. But it will be a fight. It will be challenging. And I think there's like this entire we're playing 4-dimensional chess here. Like I think there's a lot of players, stablecoin players that don't want Bitcoin to succeed because they're okay with the US dollar and they're building on the US dollar, and their value proposition is basically anti-Bitcoin volatility. Basically, the value proposition of using a stablecoin, why use a stablecoin, not use Bitcoin, is because Bitcoin is volatile. But what will happen when Bitcoin isn't volatile and everything is, people understand that Bitcoin is only being appreciated while the US dollar only get depreciated, and people will start heavily transact on Bitcoin, then we'll have a problem with stablecoin companies, which also kind of play a big part of keeping the dominance of the US dollar.
Technically, stablecoins are just kicking the can down the road because they are extending a fiat problem, right? We've seen, obviously, that USDT or USDC, they can, if they want, recall or freeze transaction, right?
It's a permission network, that's for sure. Stablecoins are a representation of a fiat system. It's a regulated USDT pulled out of the EU because of the regulatory and the new MiCA legislation in the EU. It's very hard for me to envision a world where a fiat representation, something like stablecoin, can function like Bitcoin in an open, borderless global manner. You really need a true native, digitally native asset in order to provide this functionality. If you represent something from the fiat system, then it means that you will be regulated, you will be controlled, you will be permissioned. And what you said about kind of freezing transactions is just one symptom of this entire technology not being internet native or digitally native. Bitcoin is a digitally native asset. Like there's no printer, there's no human involvement in Bitcoin. Miners are mining Bitcoin. That's the way Bitcoin is being produced.
You've seen a bunch of cycles. Are you expecting those 4-year cycles to stay in play? Or maybe now that we have different players, ETFs, countries, we have El Salvador, we have Michael Saylor, we could break out from those cycles?
I'm not in the business of giving these types of predictions. I think my only advice, even put Bitcoin aside, take a look at the show that is called the US dollar. Take a look at the US debt. Take a look at how everything else in the world get depreciated, and then decide whether you want to go to Bitcoin or not. But I think it's really feeling kind of a bit weird discussing it because it's already mainstream. Like talking about even if the number doesn't go up, just kind of counter the current inflation, it's good enough, right? And of course, there's an upside of more demand. And if you ask like my personal prediction, yeah, of course, I think there will be more demand to an appreciated asset. It's just logical that will break out of the cycle because of the current mainstream adoption. Like there's no need for a different supply change in order to cause a price increase, because demand will cause price increase as well. So I'm kind of with you on the fact that since Bitcoin is getting more and more mainstream, that will kind of break out of the cycles, but I don't want to give any prediction.
If you think about it in terms of adoption, it's funny, whenever, I mean, at least that was my journey, whenever I've gone into Bitcoin to begin with, my idea was to make more fiat. And now the reason why I'm in Bitcoin is because I don't want any fiat. So there's a proper 360 there.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely like thinking of Bitcoin, holding Bitcoin. And yeah, when I bought Bitcoin, I have to be honest, like I wanted to kind of hold Bitcoin for a few years and then buy real estate. I wanted to buy a real world asset, but the best asset that I can hold is Bitcoin. So when people kind of starting going down the rabbit hole and they understand kind of Bitcoin is the best asset to hold in the world, yeah, you just want to accumulate Bitcoin.
Well said. Roy, thank you so much. I truly enjoy our conversation. Guys, as always, in the description box, you will find Roy Twitter account, which you need to go and follow because I truly enjoy your tweets also. And happy birthday, because I know your birthday is coming. So thank you.
Happy birthday to you too soon, Mauricio.
Guys, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you on the next one.